now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, folks, the state of Pennsylvania is in trouble. They have a serious problem. It's the pension problem. If you recall, when Governor Corbett was on the show, he addressed that. We had a two-part show. And a lot of other issues that are very, very critical for this election in November 4th. Before I start the show, my guest is Secretary of Revenue Dan Meuser. I want to explain a few things. Number one, folks, I've said this a number of times. There are some Republicans that will never vote for a Democrat no matter who it is. And there's some Democrats who will never vote for a Republican no matter who it is. They're just staunch. That's why we have the problems that we have in this country, folks. Vote for people that are qualified, check their credentials, and go beyond the nonsense, because you're hearing all kind of nonsense now, and you'll hear more of it before the election comes. It's critical, it's your life, and today when we talk about pension and how it's affecting you, you're going to see how serious it is. Now, my guest, as I said, Dan Meuser, and Dan, thanks. It's always nice to have you on the show.
Great being here, Sam.
Once again, Dan, I appreciate the fact that you always give me the true facts and no rhetoric. And I appreciate that very much.
Sure.
We talked about the pension problem. There has to be some kind of solution. I was at the meeting that Governor Corbett had here in Northeast, in the Greater Hazleton area. There was the superintendent of a school district there. There were school board members there. There were various people there. And every one of them told them how it's such a critical problem for them because they have to raise the taxes. Not because of Corbett, but they had to raise the taxes because of his pension program. What's his approach?
Well, first off, when you start off saying Pennsylvania's in trouble, you're right in the pension end of things, but I will say 4 years ago, Pennsylvania was in big trouble before Tom Corbett came in. If you don't mind me just
Sure.
outlining some of that. I mean, we had a $4.3 billion deficit that the governor cleaned up. We had 8.2% unemployment. We're now at 5.7. We had crumbling roads and safety issues with bridges. The governor passed a transportation bill. We've initiated tax reform, so we no longer have some of the worst and highest levels of taxes for job creators and families. It's a lot better. So we've come a long way, and in spite of that, we've actually raised revenues by over $2 billion. We resolved the serious budget issues. Some will continue in years to go, and that's largely due to the pension issue. Pensions, the governor has been pushing for corrective measures and reforms to pensions because we do, in fact, have a pension crisis since the day he came into office. Governor can't do it all by himself. He offered up a couple of plans along the way. They got close within the General Assembly, and the reason that they got close was because they were very reasonable. They respected contracts, they respected union members, they respected teachers, but they also respected the typical taxpayer of Pennsylvania. So it was a very reasonable, balanced plan that was offered. We're now dealing with a plan, it's referred to as a hybrid plan, introduced by Representative Tobash, that the governor is supporting. It's not as aggressive, perhaps, as what he wanted, but the fact is this is a good plan, a good step in the right direction, because it achieves what the governor wants to achieve. He doesn't want to kick the can down the road, wants to lower long-term unfunded debts. He wants to be fair to all parties, but he wants to lower the burden on Pennsylvania taxpayers, and that's what this plan does.
What specifically is the plan? Some specifics.
Well, specifics are that all new employees will go into what's referred to as a hybrid plan. They will go up to 50% of their pay. They will stay in a defined benefits plan, which exists today. Above that, it will be defined contribution. That's really where the savings comes in. The multiplier for retirees will be at 2%, where it had been at 2.5%. So there's some saving there. Again, that's only for new retirees, new employees. It does nothing. It leaves all the benefits in place for all those who are currently retired and all those who are presently employed. So that's very important. None of that is touched. The only effects occur are on new employees enrolled in the system, school teachers or state workers, and their first $50,000 of pay remains under the defined benefit plan. Above that goes into defined contribution, and there's a couple of extensions as far as what year they can retire and things of that nature.
Okay, so with that plan, all right, now, because we're hearing from the Wolf side, okay, Tom Wolf's, that it's going to be a tax increase, okay, and it's going to affect the middle class, okay? I don't understand that scenario here.
Well, the only person that's going to be raising taxes, a pledge made by Tom Wolf, is that he is going to raise taxes. Tom Corbett is not going to raise taxes, so that's a distinct difference. Look, how somebody like an individual, a gentleman running for governor, can say that we don't have a pension crisis either isn't looking at the numbers or is just telling people what they want to hear.
You know, it was interesting, Dan, not to interrupt you, but at that meeting that we had, that the governor had, everyone was there, it was an open meeting. There was a lady there, 72 years old, okay, and with her school taxes and how it's hurting them, okay? And when he was done explaining, she said something very interesting, and that's what I'm hoping to do with my shows, is, Governor, I did not know everything you're talking about. I didn't understand that, okay? Like the school taxes, where governors, they're saying the governor took money from education, which is not true. You know it, and anybody who has any intelligence knows that, okay? So it's how you get this across, Dan, to people.
It's opportunities like this. The facts are that Tom Corbett has the facts on his side and engages in the right strategies and the right thing for the most number of Pennsylvania families. Governor Corbett raised education spending by $1.5 billion. I've got the graphs, I've got the empirical data. We can make it real simple, okay? The ads, a great misrepresentation, some call it something else than a misrepresentation, say of his opponent that he's lower, that he cut education spending. The only thing that was cut was the stimulus dollars that were being used to backfill education spending. We have a pension crisis. When we came into office, pension obligations on an annual basis were about $800 million a year. Moving into next year, it's $2.8 billion. Within 2 years, it's going to be $4.2 billion out of approximately a $29 billion budget. Okay, if that isn't excessive increases that, frankly, are not going into the classroom. Okay, sure, it's the obligation to contracts for school teachers and state workers, but it's not going into the classroom. All the governor's doing is asking for that pendulum to come back a little bit so it's reasonable for all Pennsylvanians, not just a few.
Okay, for the staunch Democrats that are out there, okay, because the campaigns are starting, the staunch Democrats who are Democrats no matter what happens, as I said, and there's Republicans who are Republicans no matter what happens. Let me just go back and review something here. Governor Corbett promised the state of Pennsylvania a number of things. He inherited from the Democrats $4.3 billion debt. Correct. Congratulations, Governor, but here's your debt. He wiped that debt off. He also had an education budget. Now, stimulus money came in and said, here's extra money. What they did with it, maybe they shouldn't have done what they did, but they did it.
They did, right.
Now, meanwhile, he is giving, he's giving education 4 X's every year. With the stimulus money, it went up to 6 or 7 X's, but that's stimulus money. Mm-hmm. Now the stimulus money leaves. He has no control of that. But instead of 4 X's, he gives you 5 X's, which to me is an increase in education. It's the highest, according to Representative Toohill, according to anyone you talk to, it's the highest that education ever has. But why are they continuing to say he's cutting $1 billion from education? It drives me crazy.
Our Lieutenant Governor, Jim Cawley, who's probably one of the best lieutenant governors the Commonwealth has had, called it a damn lie. Others have picked it up and called it a big lie. It's simply not true. No matter how many times they say it, it's not true. People need to have an understanding that Governor Corbett has allocated more funding for education than existed before, including the stimulus dollars at this point.
Then he inherited an 8-point-some unemployment thing in the state of Pennsylvania. He brings that down to 5.6 or 5.7, okay? He takes care of all of the problems in transportation. Now I see an ad that says Your governor raised your gas tax 28 cents. Again, going back to, it's basic.
Well, there are misrepresentations taking place, and I have a big problem with that as a citizen, as a public official, and certainly somebody part of the Corbett administration. When concepts are deliberately provided and intended only for the purpose of misrepresenting the truth, people should have a problem with that. The so-called gasoline tax, first of all, it was part of a transportation bill that I could explain in detail. We had a big problem in Pennsylvania. Governor Corbett and members of the General Assembly fixed it. They fixed it in the best way possible using oil company and franchise tax. It could increase at the pump as much as 9 cents this year, not 28 cents. But without it, we wouldn't be repairing the roads and repairing the bridges and everything else. Tom Wolf said recently that he applauded Tom Corbett and the General Assembly for getting it done. Now he's running ads. They probably did a poll that said, oh, people don't like the idea when you call it a gasoline tax. He's running ads that he says that what he did was wrong for the people. Talk about hypocrisy.
Folks, I'm talking to Secretary of Revenue Dan Meuser. Let me tell you something. I've been doing the show since 1994, as you know, folks. I've had many politicians come on. I had people that was asking for facts on lotteries and casino money, etc. There's only one man ever that came on from in his position was Dan Meuser. So I trust what he says until he proves to me that he is playing games. Then he won't be on the show anymore. But the point is, we have to deal with facts. Some people don't like these facts. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7, ssptv.com. My email, sam@ssptv.com. And once again, folks, we're getting close to election, and emotions start rising, and there's all kinds of things that happen. And people who just don't like Democrats will vote for Republican. People who don't like Republicans won't vote for a Republican or a Democrat, a Republican. It's nonsense, folks. It's total nonsense. Senior citizens are paying the prices. The school districts have to raise taxes because of a pension problem, not because of Tom Corbett. This is something that he's trying to address, and Dan Meuser, who's my guest, Secretary of Revenue, addressed that. Once again, there's a plan in force. You say Representative Tobash, who is a very nice person, incidentally, has some kind of solution here. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, what's Wolf's plan? Does he have a plan?
Well, he said there is no pension crisis.
Oh, okay.
So
he should have been at that meeting with all the school board members.
So I guess that means he's just going to leave it alone. And frankly, part of his strategy is just to cave to special interest and give everybody what they want. With the exception of Pennsylvania taxpayers.
Yeah. The other thing is that one of the congressional candidates running, and he asked me to ask you this question, and the question is that how are we in terms of taxing the gas drillers compared to North Dakota and, the taxes? Because what I told the governor, where you sat, I said, it seems to me like, Governor, they're not paying any taxes at all. Why don't you tax the gas companies, okay? What are we getting our fair share?
We are. As the Commonwealth's Revenue Secretary, I can tell you that the taxes that are due are being paid. These companies that have come into our state to extract our natural resources are businesses, and they're treated as such. Many are C Corps, which means they pay 9.99% in tax. By the way, that's the second highest corporate tax rate in the country. Many tend to say, well, they're only paying an impact fee, and I'll get to that. They're not paying a severance tax, and they pay one in Texas. First of all, there are so many exemptions in Texas. I won't get into that. But people fail to realize that Texas does not have a corporate net income tax. So although in first glance, they might be paying a higher severance tax than being paid in Pennsylvania, they're not paying that 9.99. The governor instituted an impact fee. First of all, the taxes paid by the corporations that involved in drilling are over $300 million in the Commonwealth, the highest ever. There's an impact fee that the governor instituted, not the previous administration. Okay, that, by the way, Tom Wolf was part of, and they rail over having a severance tax. They never passed one. Tom Corbett passed and supported an impact fee, which serves very much in the same purpose. that brings in over $220 million a year. Now, a portion of that, about half, goes back to the counties that are impacted, and the half go for services that would have been supported by the general fund, that would have been supported by taxpayer dollars. It was the right approach. It was absolutely the right approach. It's working. We have a pro-growth industry. We have the highest quality standards that have been set by the governor's bill that exists in the country. People's home energy costs are going down. Landowners are experiencing great things because the industry continues to grow. And tens of thousands of jobs are being created. If we would have taken a different approach, those things wouldn't be happening.
So let's assume, it's a balancing act here. I didn't know about Texas. Here again, when you're talking about you don't corporate taxes, so they have a severance. Okay, here you have
the effective tax rate here is higher for them than.
How do we rate with North Dakota? Are you with their?
We tend to be in the middle of the pack for gas-producing states. I believe our total tax effective rate is higher than North Dakota.
Dan, you've been a businessman. You are a businessman. You wouldn't be sitting where you sat if you didn't have the knowledge. The governor certainly has a great cabinet. Now, here's my question: do you honestly feel that if they begin to play games with the gas companies and start hitting them with taxes, okay, that these companies will be pulling out and going to different places?
Absolutely.
Now, you honestly feel that?
Oh, of course. If your cost went up, and think about this, the plan is, and I hate to keep mentioning Tom Wolf, but his plan is to have a 5% severance tax. That's on total extraction. That can actually, that's on total volume. That can actually equate to as much as a 20%, 25% income tax, maybe even higher. Look, what's happening now with the natural gas industry, it's going to bring in manufacturing. If manufacturers can have energy costs 40% less than they will have in other states, particularly New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Tennessee, the list goes on, North Carolina, Florida, they're going to start coming here rather than go to any of those states. And so this is not just about a natural gas play, although many good things happen. It's about really bringing back manufacturing as well.
Now, if I sat in the Wolf campaign, I certainly know that unemployment's down from what it was when he was a secretary. In fact, he had your job, right? The Secretary of Revenue. I certainly know that manufacturing is increasing. And I don't think I would be surrounding myself with people that would not understand if we start taxing these people more than what they're taxing, that little at a time they're going to go, because the governor said the same thing as the gas companies are expanding here. Much more manufacturing is coming in, okay, right. Particularly in the Pittsburgh area, that whole area along the river, okay. So there's a lot of taxes coming in, instead of them saying, why doesn't he tax the gas drillers, okay? So that could have a terrible effect. Are you saying? So why is it that, is it?
Why is he for it?
Yeah.
Well, the same reason, frankly, that President Obama is for raising taxes and increasing spending, and somehow that stimulates the economy.
You think?
Sure. I mean, I'm just basing it upon what he has stated and what his plan is. Yeah. You see the commercials.
Yeah.
Tax, spend. Tax, spend. I mean, that's pretty much what the commercials are about. And there are many, and got a lot of good people in Harrisburg, but you got a real large group that think taxing and spending is the strategic plan that's going to lift Pennsylvania. And frankly, they're wrong. Making Pennsylvania more competitive and increasing jobs and increasing wages and expanding job creators and helping Pennsylvania families through these means, that's where more revenues come from, and that's where improvements to the economy come.
So we hear that from people who sat on my show and say that when Wolf was there as Secretary of Revenue, we were handed a $4.3 billion debt, okay? And so now they're saying that Wolf has said he's going to raise taxes, but only on the wealthy, and the middle class will get a break. Is that correct?
Well, I did a little bit on my part, spare time analysis of what he said, and it looks like the tax he believes wealthy are people that make more than $65,000 a year. And I'm not sure if that's a family of four or what. I don't think he is either, frankly. But if wealthy is over $65,000 a year,
They're going to get hit.
they're going to get their tax increase.
Yeah, so that means there's going to be middle class is going to get hit because 65,000, even though it sounds like a lot of money, when you put two people who are working together, three in a family, they're out of that $65,000, $70,000 average, I would think. Here's a governor, Tom Corbett, promised the people of Pennsylvania what he was going to do.
Yes, he did.
He promised, I'm going to do this, 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 and he did it. Mm-hmm. Now, why, when a politician is being honest, would his popularity, now I understand it's starting to come back up, why, when you tell people in the state of Pennsylvania who are voting for you, I promise you I will do this, and he does it, I don't understand, why people are saying, well, we're not happy with him.
Well, I don't really know either. I just think that there's more misinformation out there than there is information. And we, in the course of this campaign, need to change that.
Folks, I'm talking to the Secretary of Revenue, Dan Meuser. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest, Secretary of Revenue Dan Meuser, talking about what's happening in the state of Pennsylvania. Just a review. The pension program, the governor has a plan that will help because the pension program is causing school districts to raise their taxes. That's been said many, many times.
It's moderate, it respects all stakeholders, respects Pennsylvania taxpayers, and it really should be passed.
Secretary of Revenue, you know that education. You're telling me that despite we're hearing $1 billion been taken from education, which was stimulus money, you're telling me that the governor, Corbett, has the highest amount of money in education than ever before in the history of the state of Pennsylvania.
Ever in the history, including the stimulus dollars of over $1 billion that were targeted, earmarked for shovel-ready projects that were used for education. The governor's spending is higher than that. But but the governor's not interested in winning spending contests. It's about where the dollars are going, the proper allocation, and the accountability. But the fact is, the level of spending is the highest.
You're also telling me that the governor is taxing the gas companies.
Well, we call it an impact fee.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's dollars that go back to the areas that are being impacted, the 17-odd states, or counties where the drilling is taking place. And 40% comes back for DEP, enforcement, other areas that would have been used from the general fund. So yes, we are bringing in new additional revenue, over $200 million a year, higher than existed in the previous administration.
So he acquires a $4.3 billion debt. Congratulations, Governor, but here's your debt that the Democrats left him. That was Rendell. If it would have been Republicans, I would be saying the same thing. And he took unemployment, which was high, again, because when you tax people a lot, people don't spend, and they're not going to want to grow. I'm not going to grow if I can't get any kind of benefit and employ people. People know that. So he's taken unemployment, brought it down to a great level.
He created an environment for job creators. The governor always corrects it. He didn't do it. He helped create an environment where job creators were able to expand their businesses and hire more people.
So, Dan, as a Secretary of Revenue, what would be your suggestion to the voters in the state of Pennsylvania as to why they should continue with the Corbett administration?
Well, the governor set out with a 6 or 7 point strategic plan that I could outline, but we have limited time. It was about living in a sound financial order, as taxpayers would like him to do, as it was about reducing waste, abuse, and fraud, which we did well over $1 billion worth. It was about reducing the tax burdens on them. It was about increasing education spending, having a real energy plan that was quality first, but was pro-growth and brought in more revenues. It was about a transportation bill. It was about what we've just now embraced, Healthy PA, expanding in an accountable way healthcare services to hundreds of thousands of people. The governor delivered. Did we do everything that we wanted to do? No. But the state is moving in the right direction. Unemployment is down. Revenues are up. Businesses are moving in. And please look at the facts, because we are on the right track, and it's going to be enhanced. And with the support of the people of Pennsylvania, we're going to make Pennsylvania much greater. We're going to go from good to great.
Thanks, Dan Meuser. Remember, folks, we're talking about facts, and I tell you, please check the facts. Corbett has facts. Wolf has facts. Decide who you think is the best. If they're presenting these facts and they're truthful, and they're presenting facts that are deceiving, we have a problem, folks. Just think where we were, where we are now, and where we'll be going. We'll see you next time on the Sam Lesante Show.